Hello everyone, welcome to MTX Chess. In this video, we will be talking about the best openings for beginners. This video topic was specifically requested by Willie4or on chess.com. Thank you for your request. If there are any specific topics you'd like me to cover, subscribe and let me know in the comments below. If you're new to chess, do not make the mistake of memorizing opening moves. Again, do not make the mistake of memorizing opening moves. Doing this will stall your chess development. Instead, focus on the 5 core opening concepts and applying them consistently. I've listed them on the screen. The 5 core opening concepts are controlling the center, developing your pieces, not wasting time with pawn moves, especially pawn moves that are away from the center, castling early, and connecting your rooks by developing your queen. Keeping these concepts in mind, I want to briefly touch on what I believe are the 5 best chess openings for beginners. I've chosen these openings because they are solid and easy to play, but also because they are each different enough that playing all of them will lead to you becoming a well-rounded player who is comfortable playing in games that are open or closed, sharp or positional. The 5 best openings for beginners are the Italian game, or the Giocco piano as it's sometimes called, the French defense, the Queen's Gambit, the Real Lopez, and the Sicilian defense. The Italian game starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Playing the Italian game will help you develop good habits in developing your pieces and will always allow you to castle early. Here, white develops their kingside pieces, immediately allowing for an early castle. Black can make several moves in this position, including bishop c5, bishop e7, or even knight f6. After these moves, white is safe. After any of these moves, really, white is safe to castle, or, for instance, after bishop c5, white can either castle or go for building a big center with c3 with the eventual d2 to d4. Note that after knight f6, white can initiate the fried liver attack with knight takes g5. After d5, e takes d5, if the computer will let me do it. There we go. Black sometimes make the mistakes of knight takes d5, and this is where the fried liver attack can start. The fried liver attack is a popular line among beginners, but it's rarely played at the intermediate levels. The fried liver attack looks something like this. Queen f3 check, and you've got a fork on the king and the knight. Beginners love to play this because it's a sharp tactical line, but the reality is, if we go back, the reality is that in this position, black has many better moves than knight takes d5. For instance, b5, bishop takes b5, queen takes d5. And black's better here. They're ahead in development. This knight's going to get pushed off this g5 score with a tempo. For instance, after bishop takes, castle kingside, h6, knight back, and the position has become very awkward for white. So that's the Italian game, and I encourage you, if you're new, don't get tricked into playing the fried liver attack. It's really not a very good opening. All right, the second opening is the French defense, which is an opening for black that starts after e4, e6, d4, d5. This opening lends itself to cramped positions where the player who wins is the one who can best maneuver their pieces around their pawn chain. The advanced variation of the French defense happens after white plays e5. Black might play something like c5, and white can respond with c3. In this position, black has 2 options. They can try and open up the position by putting pressure on this d4 square. Moves like knight c6, the eventual, and then maybe white might respond with knight f3, and then knight e7, eventually coming to f5, might be moved. Queen coming to b6, putting pressure on this pawn, are all ways that black can try to open up the position by pressuring the d-pawn. Conversely, black could always choose to close the position by playing c4. Whereas the Italian game, which we just discussed, is great to play because you learn how to develop and fight for the center over the open board, the French defense is great to play because you learn how to tactfully maneuver your pieces around a very closed pawn center. All right, if we go back to the beginning. The third opening is the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit starts after d4, d5, c4. I did an in-depth video on the Queen's Gambit, and I'll put a link to that video at the top of the screen. In this opening, white offers black a pawn in exchange for control of the center. It might look something like this. Usually black declines the gambit by playing any number of moves. d6 or c6 are really the 2 most common responses for black. The Queen's Gambit, let's go back. The Queen's Gambit often leads to positional games, games where the chief objective is not to overwhelm your opponent with tactical threats, but rather to slowly grind away at him through the achieving of a series of small positional victories. Oftentimes, the middle game battle takes place in the center or on the queen side. Beginners should play this opening to shake things up and to improve their positional understanding. To give you an idea of what development in a typical Queen's Gambit would look like, consider the modern variation of the Queen's Gambit declined. After d4, d5, c4, e6, which we've played, it could continue knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, knight bd7, knight f3, castle kingside, and maybe here white has a couple options. You could play c takes d5, followed by developing the bishop to d3. You could just develop the bishop to d3 right away. The queen could come to c2 or to d2. The rook's coming to c1 or to d1, depending on what the queen does, and white's planning on castling. That's kind of typical development in the Queen's Gambit declined. All right, the fourth opening that beginners should play is the Real Lopez. The Real Lopez is one of the oldest openings in chess and starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Here, white immediately places pressure on the only defender of the e5 pawn, this c6 knight. The Real Lopez is one of the most complicated openings in all of chess and is regularly featured at the Grandmaster and even the World Championship level. Black has a number of responses in this position, including a6, the Morphy defense, knight f6, which is the Berlin defense, and even d6. And black can even play d4, so knight d4. So there's a number of responses for black here. With this opening, white will castle early and try and establish a center with c3 and eventual d4 if they're lucky that if they can establish that center. The Real Lopez is really a great opening. At least there's some sharp lines, and it's an opening that you absolutely must know if you're a beginner at chess because it is one of the most frequently played openings. The final opening that a beginner should play is the Sicilian Defense. And I covered the Sicilian Defense in great detail in one of my previous videos that I'll link at the top of the screen. The Sicilian starts with e4, c5. The main idea of the Sicilian is to prevent white from taking control of the center by controlling this d4 square with a flank pawn. Again, this c pawn's technically a flank pawn because it's not one of the center two pawns. This c5 move prevents white from playing, if white chooses to play d4, now what's happened is black has exchanged a flank pawn for one of white's center pawns. White, having to take back the queen, is now going to lose a tempo on the queen. With black's going to gain a tempo on the queen. If we go back, so why did people come up with the Sicilian? So people kind of started playing the Sicilian more because they were people were getting disillusioned with black playing against the Real Lopez, because the Real Lopez that I just showed you was really a winning opening for white for a long time, and so the Sicilian became very popular. The Sicilian is a great opening. It can lead to some very exciting games. A way that the Sicilian might progress, it might look like this. And this position is very famous right here. This is called the open Sicilian. After this, black might play their knight out. And development, black kind of is a little slow to develop early on. So you can see here that white is kind of clearly better here with some development. But the games can ultimately become very exciting, and oftentimes white will castle queenside, black will castle kingside, white will run an attack up towards the black kingside, and black will run an attack down towards the white queenside, leading to some very exciting games. So there you have it. Those are the 5 openings that every beginner should know and play with some regularity. Practice these openings and you will start to pick up on subtleties in each. Some of the things that work really well in the Real Lopez don't work well in the Sicilian, and vice versa. You will pick up on these differences as you play. It bears repeating that if you're still a beginner, your primary focus should not be on memorizing opening moves, but rather executing the 5 key opening principles: controlling the center, developing your pieces, not wasting time with pawn moves that are away from the center, castling early, and connecting your rooks by developing your queen. In fact, as a beginner, it's much more important and far more useful to learn basic endgame fundamentals before you delve into opening theory. You can check out my videos on endgames for key beginner level concepts. I'll link those in the video here. Well, we've reached the end of this video. Welcome to those of you who are new to the channel. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends about this channel. New videos coming every week. Next week, we will be covering the World Championship between GM's Magnus Carlsen and Ian Nepomniachtchi. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.